it's like a light bulb went off in my brain. Like the Star Wars where the jet stream start, I could kind of see the future at that moment. I'm like, okay, this is why I got back into sports cars. I can see where this is and where it's going.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 1,000 Card Project. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and I have been waiting for this episode for quite some time. I reached out to Jason Heyl from Card Block NFT on YouTube and Insta and TikTok and everything. But man, I'm so excited about this episode. I got so many questions and just appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Ron. Thanks for reaching out. And I don't know if you know this, but you were either the first or second subscriber to my YouTube channel.
Well, really, I did not know that.
When you subscribed, I don't know if you actually looked at the subscriber count or what was going on, but I remember when I first started, there was, I guess you can have the notifications off so you don't know who's subscribing, and then there's notifications that you do. So there was 3 that I got initially, 2 I could see, 1 I couldn't. So you technically could have been the first, I don't know. But you subscribed and I checked out your channel. I'm like, wow, this is like a real YouTuber. This guy has like followers and all this. I'm like, this is cool. I don't know if you know this, but yeah, you were one of the... I'll never forget that. You and Drew Ogles were the first 2 where I was like, wow, somebody actually watched my video.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy to hear. It's good. I think it's something that I want to get into in this episode about, like, I think there's that natural kind of bell-shaped curve of early adopters and then, the mass consumption. And I think that's where NFTs are. And I think the people that are listening to this that are that are traditionalist card lovers, don't turn the video off, because I think we're going to dig into some really cool stuff. And I want to go there, but I want to start big picture, because I know for me, NFTs, the blockchain, things like that. Like I was, I'm talking maybe 3 years ago, I didn't know anything about it at all. And, and I wouldn't say that I know a ton now, but enough to where I've invested in some crypto and some Ethereum and some, different things like that. But, it wasn't until your videos that I really started even exploring or thinking about cards and NFTs. I'd seen it a couple times and thought, I think this is cool, but you definitely were the first in terms of making it so that it was, approachable for me. But take us back to that aha moment when you're like, man, I think this card thing, this NFT card deal is something that I want to put some time and effort into.
It was purely by chance. The beginning of this year, I guess it kind of coupled with my entrance back into collecting sports cards. So I collected back in the day, me and my brother, heavy collectors. I fell off of it probably once college hit, and he passed away a little over 20 years ago. So in the past 20 years, my mom's kind of been cleaning out the storage unit that had a lot of his stuff. And this was the moment at the beginning of the year when I was going to take whatever was remaining and put it in my storage unit so she's free and clear of it. And he was a huge collector of just things in general, of, I have his old Jordans from the 90s, like original Jordans, like watches, like he was doing this before it was even popular to do it.
That's cool.
And then I noticed he continued his card collecting into college and post. So I was sitting there going through all the cards and I'm like, man, this is cool. Like, I like this. I was kind of getting back into it with that. I just had this epiphany, and I went home to my wife and I said, for Christmas and my birthday and all this kind of stuff, instead of asking for golf clubs or clothes or whatever, I'm like, I'm going to get back into sports cards. Like, it's collectible. It's a hobby. I started watching YouTube content. I'm like, this looks fun. I want to be a part of this. And this was just at the beginning of this year. So 7-8 months ago. And then I started jumping on the Reddit boards. I'm like, okay, I haven't been doing this for 30 years. Like, I need to get caught up on, what's going on. I know nothing except just watching these YouTube shows. And so I started reading the Reddit boards and, the PSA 10s, and it seemed a little murky. There seemed to be things going on in today's day that I don't remember from back then. So I didn't really know what to make of it. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to jump in and buy some PSA 10s. I left off collecting hockey for whatever reason. And so I bought some Fedorovs, some Gretzky PSA 10s. And when I got them, for some reason, when I was holding them, it didn't give me the same feeling as back in the day. It just was like, okay, this is cool, whatever. So I kept diving in, and you start to see videos and people talking about, well, maybe you crack PSA 8s or go to SGC and get them for cheap and crack them and go to PSA 10s or what have you. So I kind of got caught up in this like swirl of, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. So I did that. I'm like, maybe I just need to get the PSA 10s myself and then I'll have more ownership of it. It'll feel better. So I started doing that. I started cracking them. And I just started thinking like, what the hell am I doing? Like this isn't what I got back into it to do. I don't recognize this. It doesn't seem fun to me anymore. And it kind of disappointed me because I was like, oh, I was so excited to get back into it. And now that I'm back into it and I'm kind of trying to get caught up on what's going on, this isn't fun to me at all. Like my brain wasn't really registering it. And out of the blue, I've never collected an NFT. I do own Bitcoin and I do understand it. Never bought an NFT, never wanted to own an NFT. Just for whatever reason, I was sitting on the couch and I just thought to myself, I'm like, man, it seems like from everything I'm reading, if they just had NFT sports cars, it would solve all of these problems that I'm reading on Reddit. It would the transparency issue, the scarcity issue, the don't buy here or don't sell here because they'll see that the sale and don't buy here. And it's just like, so I was like, let's just see if they have anything like, I actually Googled it to see if one of the companies were thinking about coming out with one.
Right.
And so I Googled it and the Panini blockchain popped up. And I was like, okay, this has to be some sort of like random third party where somebody is creating an NFT, but it's not licensed and they're trying to mimic a card. And so I went on it and I'm like, this looks official. I'm like, this
Yeah.
looks real. I'm like, this can't be real. So I logged in, created an account, and I got onto it. And the moment I saw it, I was like, it's like a light bulb went off in my brain. Like the Star Wars where the jet stream start, I could kind of see the future. At that moment, I'm like, okay, this is why I got back into sports cards. I can see where this is and where it's going. And then I told my wife, I'm like, you know what, sports cards, I don't need to do that. I need to do sports card NFTs. And then she's like, you're crazy. Like, I don't even know what's going on, but you're crazy. But that was kind of the moment. And I think it was a blessing in disguise that I have been out of the card collecting game for so long, because it's funny. You see what people are saying and you read these Reddit boards. And then there's something sitting right there in plain sight. And I'm trying to at least put it in plain sight for people. And they still kind of laugh at you. They're like, that's the
Right.
most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, it's just they're so in it. Like they've been doing it for the past 20, 25 years. So it's tough to see outside of that. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise that I wasn't in it. Because then when I hit it and said, okay, what's going on now, guys? And I'm like, this is what it's become. Like it seemed a little nuts to me. I was able to kind of look outside the box and say, okay, that's what I want to be in. That makes sense to me. That's collecting. That's, it really just like that.
Yeah.
It made perfect sense immediately.
I mean, I can relate to so much of that. I mean, everything from, the low side of that. My brother passed away about 20 years ago as well, and he was the collector of the two of us. And
Very cool.
so, I mean,
But
that's
not very cool, but that's very
yeah,
cool.
no, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, and but it is cool because it is, I think it's a way to connect, and
It is. There's a particular card that I collect that's kind of, it makes me feel like we're collecting together.
it's awesome.
He was a big Barry Sanders fan.
Yeah,
Who wasn't? But he collected a lot of Barry Sanders. So to kind of make it fun, I go for like the jersey number Barry Sanders cards. Because
that's right.
he's the guy that you look through his collection, it's funny. Like he was a different type of collector. He would have massive boxes of just like 5,000 cards of the same guy. And he might buy like 20 versions of the same card type of thing,
Yeah,
where I'm more like, okay, I'll collect that guy, but I want like 20 unique versions of that
yeah.
particular card. So I kind of combine the two. I'm kind of like, okay, well, in spirit, let's collect Barry Sanders together, but let's make it a little more unique, and so
That's what's
that's kind of how I connect the dots with him and when I got back into collecting.
that's what makes the hobby awesome, right? It's those kind of connections, those kind of memories, and
I think so.
But I mean, from that to my wife thinking I'm crazy as well, doing things a little bit differently. I don't know if you've ever read. There's a book called Blue Ocean,
No.
but the book basically the premise of the book is they go out shark fishing and they throw chum in the water and all the boats circle up and they literally pick fish out of a barrel because all those sharks are feeding off the same chum. And the premise of the book's like, you're a shark. Like there's a big blue ocean.
Yeah.
Go left while everybody else is going right. And I think that that's what I've done. What's writing a book, about strength and conditioning before people did, or a podcast, or things like. That's why I was so drawn to your channel because it's different. It's going left and everybody else is going right a little bit. And I think that I do believe 1,000% that this is the future. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Now that said, I do want to dig into a little bit of I look at this in two ways. I look at it as, and I think there's this this kind of standoffish line with collectors right now to where, or with the hobby where it's like you either collect or you flip and trade and do, those type of things. And to me, like I have two hobbies. I have the hobby of collecting the players that I coached, which is my
Yeah.
hobby, right?
Cool.
And then there's hobby of like the business side of flipping cards. And I think that's
Yeah.
fun too, and so I want to step back before we get into that kind of stuff. And really for the people that are just like, this is Greek, this is a different language. They don't know anything about this. What's an NFT? What are some of the, when you talk about minting and crafting and burning and a wallet and these types of things, what are the terms that you need to know? And what is it like the big picture? What is this all about?
That's a good question. I honestly don't think you need to know much, especially that's why personally, I think the sports cards, I think every big leap in any type of technology comes from one thing. There has to be one driving force that creates a mass adoption. I mean, going back to, social media and Facebook and having it just be like this, collective community on a college campus or, even AI now from video games. Like there would have never been a GPU, a graphics chip processor created if it wasn't for video games. And then the GPU was so powerful, then they were able to take the step to AI. I personally feel like NFTs are going to be massive. Like, there's no reason, we're talking about the Panini blockchain. There's no reason why the Rolling Stones can't have their own blockchain. There's no reason why Taylor Swift can't have her own blockchain of collectibles, selling tickets, selling collectibles that they can craft and get other things, or that she can call upon people who went to certain concerts and say, we're going to have a special signing event if you have one of these NFTs, or the possibilities are endless. I just think sports cards are going to be that what video games was for AI. I think sports cards is going to be what gets NFTs to that next level. So I think if you're a sports card collector, you don't need to know, honestly, you don't need to know much about NFTs, because the more you know, the more it might scare you. So I'm trying to kind of like compare. That's what I'm trying to compare right now: NFTs to PSA 10s or things in the real world, to kind of bring an apples to apples approach. So I'm not just going on spouting, it's the blockchain and this and that, and then you can move it over to Ethereum. And I think all of that stuff will come in time. But I think in essence, like an NFT uses the same technology Bitcoin does. And Bitcoin's been through the ringer. The last 10 years, it's been thought to be dead numerous times, and it keeps coming back bigger than ever. And I think that now the sports card collectors can have that technology attached to their hobby, I think should be celebrated. I think it's like one of the coolest things there are, because I think also this type of technology is just the wave of the future. So there's this really cool intersection that I see of all these cool technologies that in 10 years will be commonplace, and it's all starting with sports cards. So I think in essence, it just brings ultra transparency. Like, you can't mint an NFT just to mint it. There has to be something attached to it. There has to be accountability. There has to be, scarcity attached to it. There has to be transparency attached to it. And I know some people don't like that necessarily. In the sports card community, you go to a card show, you might see one of 10 gold that you've seen for the past 5 years. That's the first one you've seen. This is a
Right.
lot more accessible, where you know exactly who owns every single one of them. You can see them at all times. You can see the price history. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I see that as a good thing. I think it solves a lot of problems. And I've
Right.
made it a point in some of my videos where PSA and these grading companies are they're responsible for creating the transparency and scarcity, not the actual sports cards themselves. Whereas the cool thing about NFTs, the product, the NFT itself is what creates the scarcity and the transparency. It doesn't need help. It doesn't need a third party to do that. Once you pull it from a pack, it's a perfect representation of itself. And in that holds scarcity and transparency. You don't have to try to artificially create this by cracking an SGC and trying to get a PSA 10, because that happens to be the hot grader of the moment. I mean, I know I'm rambling, I'm sorry, but with all this technology with PSA, with all the technology with AI right now, it's hard to imagine, not that PSA won't figure it out, but it's hard to imagine that at some point grading won't be standardized, where a machine is going to be able to effectively grade things and not whoever PSA hires. So I'd be worried to even buy a PSA 10, because who knows in 3 years what's going to happen? So I think with the NFT, with the blockchain technology, all of this just kind of gets solved. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I think if you just understand that, and like you, buy your first sports card NFT and kind of get into it,
Right.
then it'll start to make sense. And I'm still learning things too. Like this morning, Panini had, like you mentioned, crafting. They had an event where if you own packs of particular sports cards, you can craft those packs, meaning burn them to get a new pack, which is like a dragon scale. It'll be like a more scarce version of that card. I mean, to be honest, like that is kind of new to me as well. Like I'm kind of learning that process as I go along. And it's been 8 months. So, I think just dip your toe in. And as time goes on, what is foreign to you now just by participating in 2 years is just going to be like, yeah, that's just what it is.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, Gary Vee talks about all the time, right? Just when learning a new skill, a new industry, a new whatever, you got to go put your 10,000 hours that, you got to go watch and just go put a weekend in and really go deep. And I think there's this kind of gap that people think is massive, that's just technology. Either I don't believe in it or I don't understand it. And it's just so far away that, and the people that do, like even just talking right there, like I think that it's like the curse of knowledge, right? Like I think, NFT, like what separates an NFT like from just a picture that you put on your phone, right? That would be somebody that was just basic. What stops somebody from just taking another picture and
Yeah.
saying that's my picture, right? And I think when you have the blockchain, just tell me if I'm wrong here. Like basically the blockchain is, to put it on, you digitize it, right? When you do that, you only put so many on. So that creates that scarcity that we like, and there's transparency because of the blockchain. You're able to see every transaction and when it happened, which is, I think is great, like you do. Minting is basically the process of putting it on the blockchain, and burning is basically the process of taking it off the blockchain. Is that, or taking it,
It does
just
it
doing that, I guess.
Yeah, burning, it doesn't completely remove the history. Like it nothing once something's on the blockchain, it doesn't really get removed, but it gets removed from circulation. So it technically, yes, it's like if you
Can't
burned a
buy it.
card, but
Can't. Yeah.
yeah, but I think what you said is true in the sense that I get that a lot too, where it's still the JPEG. See, NFTs 3 years ago got off to a rough start. People were just literally, taking videos of something or like taking the GIF or a meme, something that was readily available that had no value at the time. So they were taking something that had no value and like a meme and saying, we're going to make it an NFT and we're going to say it's the actual GIF or whatever, and we'll sell it for $1 million. I think that's gone away. I think a lot of that, and to Gary Vee's point too, he said a lot, 99.9% of that stuff will go to zero. And I think at this point we've seen that. And that's, I think, what's creating this kind of like, in my mind, a new surge in the NFT for sports cards, because it's, in my mind, the NFT world is finally leveraging something that's already valuable. It's already seen by the world as being of value. These are noticeable, iconic sports cards just happening to be used on a new emerging technology, which is the blockchain. So I think that's really helping the cause. So I don't understand the JPEG anymore. I did 3 years ago. If someone bought a GIF for $1 million that I could text to a friend or whatever, I understand that thought. But with this new groundswell using sports cards on the blockchain, I don't. And the only other argument, I say to that is, and again, I believe in NFTs. So I feel like I can kind of see, a couple years ahead than what it is now. But someone posted a comment on one of my early YouTube videos where he mentioned something about blah, blah, blah. He was kind of ranting against NFTs and me. And at the very end, he said, just answer me this one question. Can I hold it? And I'm like,
Cool. Yeah.
no, but in my response, and it just popped in my head, I'm like, no, you can't hold it. I go, but you can see it. You can't see a lot of these cardboard variations because there's no transparency and there's no scarcity. Until it gets graded by a PSA, you have no idea what is going on with that particular card, how many are out there. It's like buying a share of stock and they don't tell you how many outstanding shares of the company there are. You'd be
Right.
like, well, then how are you going to tell me what this is worth? The NFT, it's crystal clear. So no, you can't technically hold it, but you can see everything about it. And I think that's the one thing that will help people get over the fact of thinking it's just a JPEG.
Yeah.
It's really not. And as this technology becomes more prevalent, it's just going to happen overnight for people. They're going to go to sleep one night and wake up in the morning. And like what happened to me, they're just going to be like, oh, it's going to happen to something in their life. It could be a Taylor Swift concert ticket. And they're going to be like, okay, I get this now. So
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, I think for people, they need to do their research and they need to go. And I mean, like what kind of clicked for me was, when starting to talk about,
yeah, what did click for you? That'd be interesting to know. Like what interests you when you first saw it?
yeah, initially, like, I think what got me into the blockchain and understanding was like going back and doing some research on the value of money and how it's tied to gold and this resource. And it's like basically it's just this accepted, resource as that's valuable. It could have been anything, could have been copper, could have been silver,
Yeah.
could have been whatever, but we chose gold, right? Well, it's a similar thing when it comes to, money. And I think for me, then it was like, okay, the simple question is, do I think things are going more digital or not in the world? And I knew that, yes, of course it's going more digital. And so things are going to go and money and everything. Just like when I use Apple Pay, like I got pissed off the other day for not being able to use Apple Pay at Home
I
Depot,
know.
right?
Me too.
That, yeah,
Lowe's doesn't use it.
yeah, Lowe's and Target, but I think it's one of those things. Like I think the world is just going more that way. And then when you start to understand, like, okay, it's like putting a file. Don't think of it like money, but when you put a file that's completely transparent and there's only a finite resource, finite number of that file, it's the value you put on that. And if other people put value on it, then that becomes the new associated norm. Sports cards, it was, like what clicked for me with sports cards is a lot of the reason why I started this project is because I've always been in the hobby as a collector, but I never really was in it as like a flipper or business or things like that. But then when I started looking at it in that way, all I heard about was people hating grading services, and the subjectivity of that. I heard all these people collecting all these boxes and eventually just unloading them and liquidating them for pennies on the dollar because they're just tired of having all this stuff in their house, and then the fear of not being able to look at it and display it and those types of things. And so I'm looking at the blockchain and I'm looking at your videos and Panini blockchain. And I had gone to the Panini blockchain prior to seeing your videos. I even had gone back to OpenSea at one point and was like, kind of looked at some things there. And, it didn't really click for me until it seemed daunting to me until I started watching your videos. And then I was looking at the cards and I was like, man, that's cool. Like that's the exact card. It's just in digital form and it's got scarcity. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes sense, and so now I think to me, that's the issue. That's where we're at with things I think it makes sense to a lot of people because of all the things that you're talking about, the scarcity, the transparency, taking some of the subjectivity out of grading and things like you don't have to worry about grading an NFT. Like that's it. There's 424 of them. There's
Exactly.
99 of them. There's 25 of them.
You don't even have to worry about spending all this money trying to get this particular card only to get it, but like the printing is off a little bit or
That's right.
something's nicked and you just spent how much money, how much time to try to get this card, you finally pull it only for it to be a printing issue that I mean, it just doesn't it's so much more I think satisfying with an NFT too with not only removing that to have a third party create the scarcity and the transparency, but also you just get a perfect representation of what you want to collect every time. That doesn't play into the scarcity or transparency of it. And that to me is fun too. Like I don't want to get an off-centered card of something I want. Immediately I'd just be bummed. And I think that that kind of stuff too, like it just again, I think this is all maybe with you too. We were out of the collecting game for a while and coming back into it. So I think we had kind of a different we were able to kind of filter things differently than people who have been doing it for 20 or 25 years. It just blows my mind. Like just the fact and Jeff Wilson and like the sports card investor and stuff. Like I love that guy. I mean, he's great at what he does. I consume normal sports car. I don't think normal sports cars are going away. I just think they're going into the route of they'll be like the modern day art galleries. Like you're going to go to a rich Wall Street guy's house in New York, and instead of him showing you his Monet or whatever, he's going to show you, my new logo man or something. I mean, Tom Brady's Card Vault brand the first store they opened, and I know you hear a lot about like, oh, this hobby's for the kids. We're doing this for the kids. The first store they opened was the Hamptons.
Yeah.
I mean, if that doesn't tell you something about where the hobby in the physical sense is going, these guys want those types of things now. Even Dana White. I saw a Dana White thing recently where he built a custom safe that's kind of framed into his wall to show his sports car collection that he didn't have a year ago. I mean, these guys are also presenting these in the sense of high end art now. But anyways, back to my sorry, I'm rambling. Back to my thought with Jeff Wilson. This guy has balls. I mean, I love it because he owns this big card shop and he'll push it to the edge. Like he did that video recently and his partner did the video where they cracked PSAs out of his store and submitted them to all the other grading companies, showing all of it kind of doesn't make sense. And it really comes back to whoever happens to be grading it at that time or whatever. He showed that it's just all wacky and he's so in it probably more so than anybody. He's still showing that. And people aren't like, that doesn't wake anybody up because again, it's normal to people who have been doing this for 20 years. That's just normal. But to me, I look at it, I'm laughing. I'm like, this is hilarious that like you spend this much money and whatever and invest this much time and this guy who's leading the charge on the scene is showing you it's kind of wacky. Now come to my store
Right.
and buy more. With nothing against him. Like I think he's awesome. I do. I think he's doing great content, whatever.
Yeah.
But when he put that out, I'm like,
Exactly.
you are fearless. You're fearless. You know, with everybody else didn't want to touch that subject and he just goes forward. I'm like, okay, you know, props to you for doing that. But how it doesn't create more interest like me and you have to possibly look somewhere else like an NFT, it's still surprising.
I think it's, you know, like Jeff Wilson's a great example. Like this, I think in the hobby, right? There's so many people that they can't stand him because it's, you know, he's thinking about investments or the dude's a smart businessman. Like he's a smart businessman. And I think personally, I think there was something, a play at work there with that. I think my personal opinion, I think he's going to buy Beckett and he's going to put AI involved, AI grading to take that out. And I
Okay,
think
not a bad note.
that's the only name I think that can compete with PSA in terms of the grading deal. And I think it, you know, in our lifetime, I don't necessarily think that grading maybe goes away completely or cardboard goes away completely. I think that's going to be a part of our lives. I think when you start to look at NFTs or the blockchain, like putting real estate on the blockchain or doing things like that, like things are going to go more to where there's going to be physical and digital, and that's going to be more married. And I think that's going to be the next evolution to the point to where eventually everything's going to be digital, right? You know, and whatever it is. But I think going back to what you were saying, I think Teapot put out a video the other day about this kind of life cycle of a collector, right? And it's this buy everything, consolidate, build it back up, consolidate again to where you get into your point where it's like you're going to have 3 or 4 really key pieces. And then you go to those guys and you're like, hey man, like I want to see your Mickey Mantle 52, whatever. And they're like, well, here's a picture,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And so, but a lot of times those are the same people that are crapping on an NFT that you're going to be able to display in a variety of ways at
Yeah.
some point. Right. And
You know,
I
with
think,
Michael Saylor said something interesting, and you know, regardless of what your opinion is on him, the guy who owns MicroStrategy, but it made sense at least to me when it came to Bitcoin because I wanted to buy it, but I was like, whatever, I don't know too much about it. But he's the biggest Bitcoin advocate ever, and he's like, I used to hate it. He goes, before you can love it, every single person has to hate it.
all right.
And I think that's where we're at with NFTs too. I think every person has to hate the NFT before they can learn to love it. And we're still in kind of the hate stage.
Well, I think it's also ironic to me that a lot of people that, you know, like the biggest collectors in the world, one of the things that they love the most is the prospecting piece of the hobby.
Yeah,
And this is like NFTs to me is prospecting on the future of the hobby.
I agree. It's, I think, yeah, I think, and I try to bring that to people's attention, collectors' attention. Like I truly started my channel to get collectors more involved. Like the person like me who was kind of lost in the physical world. I really do. If I was just looking to make the most money off NFTs, I'd shut my mouth and I'd just buy as much as I possibly could. Because I do think in 2, 3, 5 years, everybody will look back on this time and be like, wait, you bought a Caleb Williams Prism Silver for how much? You know, like you bought this for how much?
That's right.
I mean, to think there's thousands of these cards out there in the world that are selling for 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the money. To think that that's collectors aren't going to at some point notice that scarcity and transparency and want to pay for that. All these guys who want these high-end logo man and these one-of-ones and this, that, and the other. I mean, if there's only 400 Wemby Silver rookies on the blockchain, come 2 or 3 years, all over the world. This is a worldwide, market on the Panini blockchain. If one guy wants one, or two guys, or three guys, they're going to really want it because there's only 400. Whereas in the physical world, there's over, I think, 30,000, if that's correct. So I just think we're early right now. And I try to bring that into perspective to get collectors on, because I do want people just to have more fun with this, because it really is the coolest thing I feel like I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Truly, I'm just saying that. And so I'm trying to get that across to other people, that this really, I was having no fun in the physical world. If you just give it a shot, I think you're going to just have a blast, because I do think it's the coolest thing. I kind of want to scream it from the mountaintops. And it's not about me just stockpiling and waiting for that moment where I can say, haha, I got all these. Here you go. I'm going to make a bunch of money. That's going to be nice too. But it really is trying to get more collectors to see this and just have fun with it.
Yeah, I think the authenticity and the transparency that you have with it, and the genuine, like, want to see that, rising tide raises all ships. I think it comes across in the videos for sure. Let's dig. I want to dig into some tactical things, and be respectful of your time here. So, like, right now, the only real option that we have is the Panini blockchain. Is that
Yeah.
correct, or is there other
Correct.
options in terms of NFTs?
Well, in terms of sports cars or TCG,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
only, yeah.
Okay. So now with the Panini blockchain, where do you see things going once they lose a license, to all these sports?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they could, my hope is that they buy Upper Deck. I would love for hockey to come to the blockchain. Now, Upper Deck has NFTs. You can actually go on to the Upper Deck. What is it? It's I'm losing my train of thought. I can't think of the actual name of it, but Upper Deck has their own blockchain. And you can,
So there is another marketplace for
but
for
here's the thing, it's not a marketplace. So I don't know why Upper Deck does this, but you go on and they created like three sets that aren't known in the physical sense. They're kind of sets that are blockchain sets. They're $40 a pack, and you can't buy and sell them. You can only trade them. So you're spending $40. Like, I could understand in the physical sense, if you buy packs, then you maybe are gifted or have access to free NFT
Right.
packs in that sense. But if you don't create a marketplace for people to actually transact, then you're spending $40 thin air. And they're not really pushing it like Panini is pushing it. If Upper Deck opened it up and created a marketplace where you actually buy those NFTs and you could sell them, I think that would change it completely. It's still not up to snuff as Panini blockchain. Like, Panini's so far ahead of where they're at if you log into their program. So anyway, I would love for Panini to buy the NHL license, basically by buying Upper Deck. That would be really cool. I'm a TCG guy too, like Pokemon, all that kind of stuff. So if they find, I know they did the Bad Eggs set, which was a popular NFT set, and they brought it to the blockchain. I think anything right now, I think we're entering like the collectible renaissance. I think collectibles in general, like not just sports cards, but everything over the next 10 years will probably outperform a lot of just conventional assets. So they could license a bunch of stuff that might not be sports that I think could still push things forward. That would be fun. I think with them bridging the gap with the Ethereum at the end of the year, I think that will really help, at least with the existing cards. Like, the Wemby rookie is iconic. The
Right.
Caitlin Clark rookie is iconic. Like, these are cards that just every collector has ingrained in their brain. So once you know that you can remove that from the Panini blockchain and have it on OpenSea or have it in your wallet, I think
Right.
licensing or not, people will still buy those in the physical world. So there's no reason why that NFT will not continue to exponentially grow over the years. So I think that those cards are protected. I don't think that affects their future value. But I think everyone in the back of their mind is waiting to see what Panini does. I don't think they've mentioned anything. I don't know if Topps plans to try to acquire them.
And you got to think that Topps is going to either do their own thing, or that's what they're maybe looking at, and within Panini to really, maybe that's the brand that they, like that when they bought Bowman, right? Panini is the blockchain piece of what they do moving forward, or something along those lines. Because
And they have a lot of history with like they built the current hot subsets like the Kabooms, the Downtowns, all that kind of stuff that Topps doesn't have. They're kind of starting from scratch. So if they buy Panini, they can also leverage those already super collectible sets that have been through the ringer the last 10 years to create value in the eyes of the collectors. So maybe that will help too. I think Pokemon is that's if we fast forward 10 years from now and we look back in time to see the moment in time that NFTs go from you're crazy, it's a JPEG, who cares, to the moment that the world gets involved with NFTs. It's the day that Pokemon says, "We're releasing NFTs." That
Yeah.
moment in time, every NFT anyone owns through the ringer.
Yeah.
Every single person that was a naysayer is gonna think to themselves, "I messed up."
Yeah.
Everyone is gonna get involved. So, it's everything's kind of a lead up until that moment in time, and then forget about it. It's off to the races.
But we really don't. I mean, at this point, we really don't know like the value of the Wimby or the Caitlyn or any of the cards that are existing, the Kabooms or whatever. Like that's going to stay there no matter what. But I mean, as far as just like in the physical world, things those are going to stay there. Moving forward, we don't quite know what the blockchain looks like for sports cards and licensed products kind of moving forward past whenever that happens. Now they do have some other sports. I don't know if UFC is switching back over to Tops or WWE or some of the
Yeah.
other ones that are on there as
Also,
well.
I think Panini still has a WNBA license for another few years.
Yeah.
It's not completely transparent with what the contract is, but I think people are guessing it's till like 2028, I wanna say. So you still got that, but yeah, I mean, it's
Well, that
your guess is as good as mine.
that's a perfect segue in my next question because that when you asked me what was the one of the early, I thought the videos that you did early on with the Wimby, the Jaden Daniels, and some of these comparison to PSA 10s, and I was like, that makes complete sense. Like,
Yeah.
let me go buy some of those right now. Oh, and then what really got me was, the WNBA and thinking like, okay, man, this is the first year that they have their cards out on any form, any way. If blockchain's the future or, digital's the future, my thesis, your thesis, whatever, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go buy every freaking rookie WNBA player silver and just stash that. I don't care. I'm not looking to buy that and sell that at all. Like, I'm just going to stash it and see what happens in 15, 20 years.
I think you're dead on.
And so I bought every one of the rookies, but where do you see, cause like, this is when the one thing that I wanted to challenge you on and get your opinion on this was when you do your comparison, you talk about the transparency and the scarcity and I think you had three maybe metrics that you always compared, when you did those PSA 10, the pop report or whatever. So
Yeah.
I can't remember what the other one is, but the one piece that I feel like you leave out in that sometimes is the marketplace, right? And just like if you're in this purely to flip cards and make some profit and not just collect, well, then the marketplace, the adoption right now is considerably less than eBay or being able to sell those PSA 10s of Anthony Richardson a year ago, or whatever. Like if you go buy, you know, you know, uh, Bo Nix right now, like Bo Nix could be Anthony Richardson next year, possibly. Like we don't think that's probably going to happen, but
Yeah.
like
My
he
next
could
video
be.
is Bo Nix.
There's
Not
going to be
tomorrow, but
there's
it's
going to be somebody that
yes.
is that's the hyped player right now. That's not like that. That's the value is going to go to nothing in a year. So when you're buying those NFTs,
Well, I'll challenge you back. I get I do understand what you're saying. When it comes to, like, flipping or making short-term money, instead of just collecting and sitting on them and waiting for people to catch up, there are a couple guys that you'll notice maybe that they do it very well. They always buy something lower than you bought yours at,
right?
but then they reprice it just like 10 or 15% higher, and they always seem to be in a good place at the right place at the right time, and they which I like. I don't mind the flippers. I like them because I think it moves the market forward. I think these guys are actually doing a service for us. They're moving the market inch by inch forward, but they're always in the right place at the right time, and they always sell it for like 10 or 15% more. So I'd actually be interested to know how well those guys are doing because they seem to be, I've bought plenty from them and they always seem to be doing well. Again, probably not as well to your point as a physical world because there's not that transparency. You could buy something from your friend, go to a card show, and maybe double it within a couple weeks. That, yes, right now with the transparency on the blockchain, you can't do. To your second point, I would argue we're so early with the Panini blockchain. I bought a JJ McCarthy silver rookie, and the numbers in between 0 to 100. I've become, a stickler with that sometimes too on the lower end cards. Like I like the lower numbers for $5. In my mind, JJ McCarthy could just be a mediocre Minnesota Vikings quarterback for the next 5, 6 years. That NFT is still worth more than $5. It's with the scarcity, with everything with it. I still think that right now we're so early. I don't want to say you can't lose, but I kind of think you can't lose. A lot of these
Yeah.
are priced so low, even if it's not a hit, even if they're mediocre for their team, the realistic value of these, that card should not be $5 or that
Yeah.
NFT, sorry, should not be $5. So that's at least how I view it is we're so early and there's so few in the marketplace. I would argue you can't lose. You can just hit it very big,
Sure.
but in 5 years to think that that JJ McCarthy at a 400 silver, the least scarce version of his rookie, is going to be under $5 regardless of what he does, that would shock me.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying, and I think long term, I think, again, I think it's kinda like all these people that are going and they're buying 1963 base, whatever player, like 5, 10 years from now, every one of these NFTs are going to be valuable and probably worth more than what you bought them for. I'm thinking more of the short term of like, okay, I'm buying JD McCarthy in the off season. I'm trying to flip him to make a profit in the season. I haven't seen quite the jump there in terms of, like I've only seen it kind of really tick down, as far as the short term, I think I guess my question to you, is there examples of specific cards, that you've seen the opposite where you've been able to get a good return off of a short-term investment, I suppose?
I've doubled my money on a few just in like a couple weeks. Again, I just had thought in my brain I'm going to look into this particular player and I saw like a parallel or something where I'm like that's pretty cheap. Or I saw a previous sale that was pretty cheap and sometimes you just hear the right my view has always been and I've said this in a couple of videos. It takes this market is so transparent. Again, it has a lot of parallels to the stock market. It takes a little time for it to kind of find its floor because a lot of these collectors will open packs and JJ McCarthy might mean a lot to me and you, but it doesn't necessarily mean a lot to this other guy because he just wants a Caleb Williams. So if you come in, or if one of these guys come in to specifically the flippers and offer $5, what if he just held out 2 weeks, maybe could have gotten 10, let it go for $5. And so a lot of times I think before you see a floor in this NFT market, every single NFT has to be transacted at least once. You have to get it out of the hands of the person who pulled it from a pack who doesn't have a value on it because they didn't pay for it. Because they'll just be like, here, take it for 5. I'm going to buy this Caleb Williams for 5. And so there's a lot of like moving hand shuffling cards. And then
Yeah.
once you get to the point, I think we're starting to see it with the Wemby rookie on the NFT blockchain. Once you get to the point where pretty much all of these NFTs have exchanged hands. So there's been a dollar value associated with the transaction of every single one of them. Then you really start to see the floor set. And from that point on, since the person that pulled it from a pack, they paid $85, they're only going to take 120, let's say, or 110. Then you start to see the market kind of creep up. So there are still sweet spots at the beginning of these releases to buy NFTs at a very cheap price, take them off the hands of collectors that don't want them so they can spend money elsewhere. And then once that's happened, then the tide kind of rises. And since there's not that many collectors, like I said, if it's just now happening with the Wemby rookie silver, that was released, what, 2 years ago? But I think the curve will shorten now that there's more and more collectors hitting the blockchain. I don't think you'll have that long to necessarily get into the market. That's been always my feeling. Once that hits, then you'll start to see things, and along the road you'll go up and down. I think I'm not a flipper because I don't have the patience to pick the right timing. If I see it, I put like an artificial value on a card. So I'll see a card and I'll say that should be $10. So if I buy it anything less than, because I know I'm keeping it like you, I'm not really
Right.
going to flip it. I say if I can get that for anything less than $10, I'm happy. So I buy it for 9, and then a week later I see one of the flipper guys get it for 5, and I'm like, geez, they did it again.
Right.
But in essence, they're doing me a favor. They're continuing to take those off the market. They're going to move it up, and I can still collect it and know that in a year or two. That's just not my thing. I don't have the patience for it because I am more of a collector, I think, than a flipper. But that I guess is a long-winded answer to what you were talking about. That's where kind of how I see the market working on the Panini blockchain right now. And again, it is a little different than the physical world because it is so transparent. If you buy a card today for 35, you can go to a card show. The person doesn't know you just bought it for 35,
Right.
for 70. On the Panini blockchain, you buy an NFT for $35. Someone looks at the price history, knows you just bought that for $35. So in their mind, they're like, okay, the market's telling me this is not a $70 NFT.
That's right.
I'm comfortable with 45 or 50. That's how it works until more people hit. And You know, you add thousands of collectors to the blockchain, all of a sudden, someone might pay double overnight for an NFT because there's only 400 of it or 350 of it. So I still think we're a couple years away from that, but that's kind of how I see the current state on the blockchain right now.
Yeah, that's why, and it's really honestly that's been my approach with the blockchain and NFTs has been that this is my stash. Like I'm not flipping anything here. My focus is really just like this is my Bitcoin that I throw in the fit in the safe, and I'll see what it does in 20 years. And I think you've done a great job of pointing out all these different opportunities that really don't. I mean, maybe they exist a little bit in the physical world, but like, when you're talking like Saquon Barkley's first Eagles, you know, block, NFT, that's got some scarcity to it that at some point some Eagle fan is going to want, that card or, the LeBron, the whole deal. Like there's so many different kinds of things like that, you've done a great job pointing out that I think are huge opportunities that like, you're gonna show that LeBron card to your grandkids at some point and be like, "That's a cool card."
Yeah, 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 totally.
I guess, I got I mean, I could ask a million questions, I know we're already 52 minutes in, but I guess the last one that I'll ask is
We could do another one in a few months and follow
we're
up.
gonna have to. We're
Oh,
gonna have to. Still, the great thing about this is establishing the relationship between you and I so that I can pick your brain more, but I think the one concern that I have noticed even in my own habits has been the more that things become more digital. I take my wife and just how easy it is to go order something on Amazon or between ordering things on ComC or doing, transactions on company blockchain. Like, do you worry a little bit about the psychology of that and just how easy that is and how that could be not the gambling addiction, but could lead to those types of things?
Definitely. I mean, I think the sports card, a lot of the hobby is gambling. I don't find joy in opening packs because of that. I'd rather just pick and choose what makes me feel good, like basically like the players I want to collect or the subsets or whatever it may be. The aspect of how quick you can get in and out of something. I think the only thing that, yes, I can't disagree with that, but I think more so than just having it accessible to you at all times, I think to your point, having the transparency that you have on the blockchain, there is some sort of a governor. Like you said, you can't literally just take something and flip it the next second. You don't get that immediate satisfaction because there is so much transparency in the price history. You can summon the world for that particular collectible. Like I said before, you go to a card show, you might see five of a particular card that there's 1,000 of in the world. Any blockchain, I can pick exactly the number I want, the collector I want. I'm going to be like, I'm going to offer you this, you this. I can reach the entire collecting world for that particular card at one given time. So it does, I think in the short term, cap things, at least for right now. So not so much that when it comes to the blockchain, opening packs for sure, whether it's on the blockchain or in the physical world, I think opening packs can create an addiction. Like I'll watch, some of these YouTube channels, Pac-Man, for instance, one of the big guys that open packs, he stresses me out. Like that dude, and you can sometimes feel his anxiety raise, and I'll turn off the channel. Like I'll have to turn it off. I'm like, dude, this guy's stressing me out. He just told me he spent 15,000 on this. It's halfway through, he's got nothing, and you can start to see him sweat. And his like voice, he's just like, oh man, and I'm like, dude, like, I can't even watch you. So yeah, I think there's that in the hobby, but I think the blockchain might minimize that at least in the near term for a little bit. But PAX, it's a lottery ticket.
Yeah, no, I can't stand that's one of the things that, again, I think I've always been a singles guy. Like, I don't think I've ever enjoyed opening packs, like even when I was a kid, like I would let other people open and then I would trade for what I wanted.
All right, I think they do enough videos, right? Where I think that it's been proven like that's the way to do it. Like every week there's a new, can I make money opening these boxes? And it seems like 9 out of 10 times they're like, nope.
Yeah, well, it wasn't smart when I was trading away all the McGuires and the Bonds and
Yeah.
everybody for the Jose Canseco 40/40 card that I had a whole binder of.
Oh man, I love Tom Brady did a video where it was like the complex sneaker show, but he did the sports cards. and he pulled out his binder of sports cards, and they were going through it, and, like, I recognize everyone, like Eric Davis and Will Clark and all those old Jose Canseco,
Yeah.
the '86 Donruss, like, oh, man, I love all that.
Yeah, no, I like I said, man, I think this is the future. There's no doubt about it. I think what people will, they're on various points of that journey. I think what I've tried to do and what I appreciate about how you go about teaching this is just pointing out, like people draw their own conclusions, right? And you've done a great job of saying like, hey, this is PSA 10, this is the pop report, this is the current price, and this how it compares to the NFT world. And at some point, this might, and that's the way to me that it's always like for the potential upside with the minimal downside. Should I just put this in a safe, grab it, put it in a safe, and just see what happens? And I think that's what a lot of people, at least that's been my comfort level with it right now. I have found myself like going down rabbit holes and being like, okay, who are all the rookies in WWE in 2022? And maybe I should grab those guys,
Yeah.
and things like that, and just go on a buying fury.
No,
But what you're
there's
doing,
levels that I've been through too, with the start and where I'm kind of at. So it takes a little bit, but you'll find kind of like your sweet spot of what you like to do and how you like to collect. But in a nutshell, I'm in your camp. I took everything off the marketplace, other than maybe a few things. Yeah, I'm not looking to sell until the marketplace catches up or the masses catches up. There's just no point because I'm not a flipper. So
well, I think, the one last thing that I'll say on that is like one of the things that I love the most, whether or not it's profitable or not, is I love going through the value bins and just like, this is a
mhm,
buck, this is a buck, and like you can go on and get cards that are in the physical world worth quite a bit more for $1 and basically dollar box every night. And then just
yeah,
like, yeah, whatever. It's
yeah,
like, don't think about it again. But, at
yeah,
some point that might be something, right?
yeah.
I think that that's the cool part of that. But anyways, I don't want to be respectful of your time. I've kept you long enough here, but man, I appreciate what you're doing. And what I always try to do in my, just in the card world, in my business and personal life, is I always try to surround myself with originators and innovators. And I think that you're doing that with your channel, and
I
just
appreciate that.
appreciate it, man. So
No, I
thanks so
appreciate it.
much for coming on.
Like I said before, you were top 3 subscribers, so you've been there from the beginning, so
We're an adopter.
I appreciate you probably more than you appreciate me because I knew when you, subscribed, I'm like, "Wow, someone's watching. Okay, cool, I'm gonna keep doing this."
No, it's awesome, man. Appreciate you, buddy.
Alright, Ron. Thank you.